Welcome back to working on our coding adventure. If you open up your VEXcode VR, your device will probably remember what you did the last time. I'm going to get rid of everything except that set turn velocity to 100% and set drive velocity to 100% because we did that last time. And we're going to go to the coral reef cleanup playground. Now, unlike the other playgrounds we've done, there are no bumpers around the edge. So you could conceivably drive off of this platform, and your job is to not damage the reef with your robot, but to pick up the trash that is randomly falling around. And picking up the trash means you're simply going to go to that piece of trash, and it will pick it up. Essentially, it'll disappear. So remember, we have all of our information up here about where we are, about what heading we're going, what the rotation is, whether or not the front eye sees something, whether or not the down eye sees something. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a three-part code here that is going to go random. Then we're going to use some if-else structures, and then we're going to actually add a little bit more to that to go to the closest thing and hopefully improve our score a little bit as we go along. So let's start by, we're going to do whatever we do forever. There's a timer that goes down and it will automatically stop this program. So we're going to start by doing a control and do a forever loop. Now I'm going to do this a little different than the forever, because really in coding there's this common thing called while true or while 1 equals 1. So it does create a forever loop, but I'm going to do this in typical language. I'm going to come down here to operators, okay? And we're going to drag in this equals one right here, where right now it says, now these things are tricky. You kind of have to hit the left-hand corner, see how it highlights and drop it in there. Sometimes these things will look like you put them in there, but you haven't, like that. So just be careful that you've dropped them in. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, 1 equals 1. How often does 1 equal 1? Always. So this is going to always run. And this is the equivalent of a forever loop, but just in more normal kind of coding language. So everything we're going to do is going to come in here. Now, what I'm going to do first is we're going to create a robot or a random vacuum cleaner, kind of like a Roomba, right? That's just going to kind of run around. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by driving forward. So we're just going to drive forward, okay? Now, we're going to drive forward until we get to this blue border, okay? Because we don't want to drive off. So this is where we're going to use inside of here, we'll use an until. We're going to use a wait until statement. So we're going to drag that up in there. Again, everything's going inside of this while loop, okay? And we're going to wait until the down eye, and make sure you put down eye, because there's a front eye looking forward and a down eye looking down. And if you mix them up, you can sometimes mess up. So we're going to go back, we're going to go to sensing here, and we're going to find where, right now it says front eye. We will change that. Oh, sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. It's the second one. It's going to detect blue. So we're going to put that in there, and we're going to change front eye to down eye, and we're going to say detects blue. Okay. Now, once that happens, we're going to drive forward, and we're going to wait until down eye detects blue. Once that happens, we need to stop. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to drive forward. So we're going to stop driving. Okay. And we're going to back up a little bit. So let's drive reverse, or 200 millimeters would probably do it. We can adjust that later if we want to. Okay. And then we're going to turn, and we're going to randomly turn. So we're making this random vacuum cleaner, right? So we're going to set our drive heading, or actually let's turn to rotation. I take that back. Let's turn right. We could turn left, we could turn right. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn right, and there's an operator in here that says random. Okay. We're going to pick random. Make sure we drop that in there. And you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to say I don't want to go the same direction I was going before. So I sure don't want to go whatever heading we were going before. So I'm going to say let's go between 90, because I assume that most of the time it's going to be going fairly straight. It might be going at an angle. So I'm going to go somewhere between 90 and 180 degrees. You can copy me, or you can play around with this a little bit. Okay. And then we're going to now drive forward again. So let's look what's happening. We're driving forward. Now, as long as we don't see anything, it's going to say wait until the down eye detects blue. Well, it doesn't. Okay. So as long as it's hasn't detected blue, it's going to just keep driving forward. Now, once it does detect blue, it's going to stop driving. It's going to drive in reverse. It's going to turn a random amount. And then once this code is done, it's back up to the while loop again, and it's going to drive forward again. Okay, so let's go ahead and see that loop. And now, last thing we're going to do is, I always do this, is I'm going to ask you to put a print down here. I think last time I did a comment. We'll put it down here on the very bottom, and say your name. And just say picked up some trash. Exclamation if you want. All right. So we've got our code ready to go. Let's see what happens. I may not run this the whole time, or I'll pause. So it should turn. There we go. I'm kind of getting lucky that I'm getting things. So normally, I was a little late for that one. All right, so he's running around randomly picking up trash. Now, I stopped mine early. You'll get this. This is your score, right? Is what you got. So, and we'll go back. Now, we're going to increase our performance, I hope, a little bit. And now this looks the same, but it is random how this trash falls. I don't believe it goes in the same pattern. So we're going to increase our performance by, instead of doing this stuff that is just going to randomly run around, what we're going to do is we're going to look for something, and we're going to drive there. Now, what we don't want is we don't want the we don't want to run off into the border. We don't want to run beyond that. So we need to make a plan for that to not happen. So one of the cool things about coding is that it's kind of an art at the same time. There's lots of ways to do this. So here's how I'm going to do this. First of all, I'm going to keep this, drag those three things out of the way. We're going to keep our while loop. Okay. I'm going to move this until out of the way. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of this while 1 equals 1. Just drag it over to the right. And instead, I am going to use what's called a not statement. Okay. Now this is saying, while this is not true, okay, that go down here, and we're going to drag that into that. While it is not true, whoops, I dragged the wrong one. It's the detect one. There we go. While it is not true that the down eye detects blue, we're going to do something. Okay, now what I'm not going to do is drive forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spin until I see something with the front eye. Now it will ignore all this other objects. It'll only see what's in the field. So we're going to get rid of the drive forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn. Now, so we're going to just turn. Now I'm going to turn right. I could turn right, or could turn left. It could do, but we're just going to keep it simple for right now. I'm going to turn right. Now I'm going to wait until, but this time I'm not going to do down eye detects. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to wait until distance found an object. Okay, what that means is we're going to wait until the front eye has seen something. Okay, and then we're going to stop. Okay, actually it will stop automatically. We don't need to stop it. In the real world with real robots, you have to stop things, but this program kind of makes it so you don't have to. Okay, so now we're going to drive forward. Okay, so, and then we're going to go until we've gotten to that object. So now, how do I know where the object is? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to sense where that object is. So we're going to drag some things in here, some sensing objects, okay? And we're going to see what the distance is in millimeters, okay? So the distance found an object, it's recording what that distance is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go forward to that distance. So actually I need to get rid of this drive forward. We're going to go to the drive state and we're going to drive forward 4, and instead of 200 millimeters, we're going to go back to sensing and we're going to drive in that distance. Okay. Now, this will repeat as long as we are not in the as long as we are not on the blue, right? Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky. I'm going to move this while not true, and I'm going to put that inside of a big old while loop. So I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit. Now, I know it's getting crowded, but we'll figure this out. So this time, I'll go ahead and use a forever loop this time, rather than while 1 equals 1. Now, inside of forever, I'm going to put that whole thing in there. That forever loop, while this is happening, it's going to do this. But I need something else to happen if this is true. And that's where this comes in, okay? Is where I'm going to put that right in here, okay? And I'm going to get rid of this drive forward. Now, here's what's happening. Is forever, it's going to run through this loop. So while the down eye does not detect blue, that's what the not does, it's going to turn right. It's going to wait until it's found an object, and it's going to drive forward to that object. Now, as long as it's not in blue, it's going to do that again, okay, until it does get to blue. So let's go ahead and run this and see how it goes. Don't forget you have to have your name picked up some trash in there somewhere. So see, it's turning right until it sees something, and then it's going to go to that object. And it's going to keep doing that. So go ahead and run that. You're going to put in your score and see if you improved from the last time. You should, because now we're not just randomly driving around. We're specifically going to things. And I'm stopping mine early just to not take up a bunch of video space, but you'll run yours that whole time. Now, we're going to get even trickier, and we're going to find the closest piece of trash to go to, or at least within a certain spec. Now, we could find the closest one, which is actually pretty complicated coding. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at two of them, and we're going to go to the closest one. So we're going to have to start by setting ourselves up with some variables. So let's do this. We're going to make several variables. The first one is going to be, we're going to call it OBJ, object one. Now, you can't have any spaces, so we need object one distance, no spaces. And we're going to create another one called OBJ2 distance. Now we also need headings. So we need OBJ object one heading. And we need object two heading. OBJ2 heading. Okay, so we have four things. We're going to find out how far is it to the first object, what is the heading in degrees to that object, what is the distance to the second object, and what is the heading to that object. Now, we are still going to have this while loop, and where if we get to this border, we're going to turn around, because we always have to have that fail safe in here. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to pull out this while loop, separate this out, okay? Now, we still need this while the down, it is not true that the down eye detects blue. We're going to do a bunch of stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to turn right until distance found an object, okay? Now, here's what we have to do, though, is I'm going to get rid of this drive forward. Okay, so we're turning right until distance found an object. Now, what we have to do is we have to set our variables. Okay, so we're going to set the object one distance to, go to your sensing, to whatever the distance in millimeters is to that object. Okay. And then we are going to set the object one heading to, in sensing, there is a drive heading in degrees, because we're facing that object, so it's whatever our drive heading in degrees is, okay? So we've set that. Now, we're going to do that same thing again. I'm going to take all of these and move them out. I know it's getting complicated, but you'll figure it out. I'm going to duplicate that. I'll explain why in just a minute. I'm moving it over here. Now I'm turning right. We're doing that. Now we're going to do that same thing again, but we're going to change it to object two distance. Object two heading. Now, there's a little problem that we have that is true in coding, that is the hardest thing to teach students. While we are doing this, here's what's happening. So let's say I'm seeing this bottle off in the distance. All of this happens in real time, okay? By the millisecond, whatever your processor speed is. Your brain is thinking like a human. You're thinking, well, of course it's going to go, after it did that one task, it's going to do the next task. But here's what's going to happen. It found an object, right? It turned right. It is turning right, but it's still within its field of vision. It's going to record those two distances. Now it's going to turn right again. Well, that is still where, even if you turn right like a hundredth of a degree, it has still found another object. It found the same object. So before we do that, we're going to have to turn a little bit more just to make sure we're not going to the same place, okay? So let's go ahead, and before we turn right again, let's turn right for something like 20 degrees to make sure we're not seeing that same object again. Okay. Then we're going to keep turning right until we found something. Okay, that way we're not going to mess this up. Now, down here, I need to change. We found something else. I'm going to change that. Oh, it looks like I already changed object to distance, object to heading. I don't remember doing that, but oh well. Okay, now, all we've done is record. We haven't done anything, right? Okay, so we've done this and we've done that. Once we've done that, then what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called an if and else statement. Okay, so we're going to say if we're now stopped looking at object 2, right? So we're going to do an if else statement that says if object 2 is closer, we're just going to go straight. If object 1 is closer, we're going to turn back to that heading and go to that one. So go to your control. And this time we're going to do an if else statement. Okay. So we're going to drag that into the while loop. There's a stop driving in there somewhere that I accidentally left. You got to kind of be careful that you don't leave things in here. Now, I still haven't put this in the forever loop, and I will in just a moment. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see a little better. All right, so now I am going to do my if-else statement that comes after all of this stuff. And drag that in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if object 1 is closer. So here's how we do this. We're going to go to our operators, okay? And we're going to drag in a greater than. We could have done less than, okay? So if we're going to say that R, go to your variables, if my object 1 distance is greater than my object 2 distance, okay, then I want to go to object 2. I'm already facing object 2, okay? So we're going to drive forward for the object 2 distance. Okay. Now, just to be sure, I might drive forward a little more. We'll see how this works. I might put in a drive forward 10 millimeters just to ensure that I'm actually getting there. But I think that that should work. Okay. Now, if that is not true, then we're going to do the else. If this is true, we do that. Okay. If it is not true, we are going to then set our drive heading. So we're going to turn to a heading of object 1 heading, because now we're going to go to object 1, right? So we're going to go turn our heading to object 1 heading. And now we're going to drive forward for the object 1 distance. For the object 1 distance. All right, now zoom out a little bit so we can see that. We're going to do this forever. Now, this is as long as we're not hitting blue, but if we are hitting blue, we're going to stop driving, turn in reverse, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to move this little thing in here to this where we said we found some trash, to the bottom of after the if-else statement. And then finally, hide this. Finally, we will put this stop driving and turn right for random. And then all of this is going to go into that forever loop. All right, so let's look at what we got. It's a little hard to see. So as long as the down eye doesn't detect blue, we're going to check our distances. And then we're going to, as long as we're not seeing blue, if we are seeing blue, it's going to turn. So let's see how this goes. So we're going to drive forward. It's going to turn right. And it's going to determine, now well, you're not seeing what's happening. It's going to determine out of the two it sees, there it went, which one is closer. Okay. Now, sometimes in this program, there's no trash for a while, and that's not your fault. It just kind of, I don't know, there's servers sometimes, it might be slow. You might have to run it more than once. So you can tell it's kind of going around. Sometimes I think there has to be two. We could code it so that there doesn't have to be two pieces of trash. But for now, like, let's see what it does. I'm curious what it does if there's only one piece of trash. Like now. It will determine and go to one of them. All right. So you should be getting more on this one than you did in the other one. So you're going to, on each one of these, you're taking a picture of your, whoops, I did not mean to drag that out. You're going to take a picture of your code. It might be a little blurry because it's hard to see, but as long as I can kind of pick out what your code looks like, then we're all good. Now, you may want to save this because we will be using a similar structure to this next class in a different playground. So remember that you can go up here and save it to your device. All right, folks. Hope that was fun. If you want, you can play around with this a little bit, see if you can make it even better. Maybe you can code it to see if you can find 3 objects and determine which one is closer. All right. Enjoy.